Welcome Math 20. Today we're going to be doing some notes for section 6.1. That's in page 338 in your textbook. So it would be a good idea to have your book open to that page as you're going through these notes. Remember again, these notes are not a replacement for reading the textbook and studying it. This is a sort of a quick summary. So section 6.1 has a couple of objectives. The first one is to write three kinds of percent notation. We're going to be using these three kinds of percent notation to convert fractions and decimals and percents in the next section. So this is sort of defining our terms and getting started. They tell you on page 338 that percent means for every 100. It's a ratio of a number to 100. So you take a poll and you poll 100 people, and 3 out of the 100 people eat Cheerios for breakfast. So you could have 3 over 100, or 3% of the people eat Cheerios. So three forms. We have a ratio of a number to 100, and they show you this on page 339. N to 100 is n over 100. Let's say I have 2.5%. And so my n is 2.5. I want to write that in its ratio form. So 2.5 to 100. Looks like this. Looks suspiciously like a fraction, doesn't it? Remember back in section 5.1 when we have decimal point in our ratio, we need to clear that decimal out. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 10 and get 25 over 1,000. I could reduce that in its fraction form, but usually in a ratio we'll just leave it. So the simple beginning is that we're just going to take whatever the percent is, and it goes over 100 as a ratio. The fraction notation works like this. Let's say I have 2%. 2% of my people eat cornflakes for breakfast. I can write 2 times 1 over 100 because percent means for every 100. For every 100 is 1 over 100. So I have 2 over 100 because 2 times 1 over 100 is 2 over 100. I'll reduce that to 1 over 50. With fractions, the fraction notation, reduce. Fractions are reduced to lowest terms. Even if the instructions don't say to do that, you'd want to reduce it down to lowest terms. The third notation comes sort of from the fraction notation. Let's say I have 52%. 52% of the people polled didn't eat breakfast at all. They just went to work. I can write that in its decimal form by taking 52 times 0.01. 0.01 is the decimal equivalent of 1 over 100. So I can put it into fraction form by multiplying by 1 over 100. I can put it into decimal form by multiplying by 0.01. 52 times 0.01 is 0.52. We're going to talk more about that in the next part where we're doing some conversions. So this is the definition of percent. It means for every 100. Here's a practice problem for you. Write 43% in its three forms. I'll give you a moment to do that. You can pause the video and then take a look at the answer after you're done writing your three forms. Okay, so 43% in its three forms. It could be 43 to 100 as a ratio. A ratio can be written like a fraction. It could be 43 times 1 over 100, and that would turn into 43 over 100. It could be 43 times 0.01. It's going to turn it into its decimal form. That would make it into 0.43. second objective in this section is to convert between percent and decimal notation. They show us on page 339 and 340 how that works. So you'd want to check those pages. First we'll convert from percents to decimals, and then we can convert from decimals to percent. So starting with the percent notation and converting it to decimal. Like we did in the introduction there, if I have 3%, that means 3 times 0.01, that'd make 0.03. If I had 6.5%, that means 6.5 times 0.01. Well, it's sort of hard to deal with fractions and decimals mixed like this, so let's take our 6.5 and write it as 6.5. Multiplying by 0.01 actually moves the decimal 2 to the left, doesn't it? So you don't have to write out that 0.01, but you want to remember that from percent to a decimal, the decimal point goes 2 to the left. That's the shortcut. What if I had 15.5%? Give you a minute and let you convert that into a decimal, and then you can check your answer here in a moment. 15.5% is going to be 15.5 times 0.01. I'll move my decimal 2 to the left. It'll become 0.155. We want to also convert the other way around, starting with the decimal and converting it into a percent. They'll show you this on page 341. So if I start with my decimal, say 0.25, I can multiply it by 1. 100% is 1. It's one whole thing. So multiplying something by 100% is the same as multiplying it by 1, because if I convert 100% to its decimal form, I'd move my decimal 2 spots to the left, I'd get 1. So if I take 25.25 and multiply it by 100%, I'd get 25%. If I had 0.013 and I wanted to convert it into a percent, I'd multiply by 1, and I would get 1.3%. From a decimal to a percent, the decimal point goes to the right. Two places. So converting from decimals to percents back and forth, you're moving the decimal point. There's a little memory device that you can use. Looks like this. RIP LOP, RIP-LOP. Right into percent, left out of percent. Right into percent, left out of percent. RIP-LOP is a shortcut way to remember that. So there's some information about section 6.1. I hope that helps you in your studies.